Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, bienvenidos. Before we begin the official presentation, I'd like to let everyone know that we're offering Spanish and American Sign Language interpretation during today's meeting. I'll read the instructions for joining the Spanish interpretation channel in English, and then one of our two Spanish interpreters will read them in Spanish. Simultaneous interpretation is being provided. English speakers may need to select English as their language. Accessing Zoom from a computer. Click the globe icon located at the bottom of the screen. Choose English. Accessing Zoom from a smartphone. Click the three dots above where it says More on the bottom right side of the screen. Choose Language Interpretation. Choose English. Press Done on the top right side of the screen.
Hola y bienvenidos. Antes de comenzar oficialmente la presentación, queremos dar la información de que estaremos proporcionando interpretación simultánea al español. Le pedimos que por favor siga las siguientes instrucciones para seleccionar su lenguaje y pueda compartir también del lenguaje de su preferencia. Si usted nos está acompañando a través de un computador, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla donde verá un globo terráqueo. En cuanto lo activen, puede que por ahora no lo vea, pero en cuanto lo activen, usted verá un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Elija español. En caso de que nos esté acompañando a través de un teléfono inteligente, esta función la puede encontrar en los tres puntos o donde dice More si sus configuraciones están en inglés o donde dice más. Ahí desglose hacia donde dice Language Interpretation o interpretación del lenguaje. Elija español y aquí muy importante, presione Done o terminado para poder activar la acción. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next slide, please. I seem to have lost the slide. Okay, I think someone is trying to share it again. Give us just a moment here. Great, now I see the title slide. Thank you so much. So before we begin, just want to ask if there are any technical issues, if everybody's able to hear and see the slides. I see that the American Sign Language or ASL interpretation seems to be working, and it looks like the Spanish interpretation is working as well. So if there are any technical issues, you can email us at cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stephanie Parent, and I'll facilitate today's kickoff workshop on the fiscal year 2025-26 Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan. Note that we also call the plan the funding plan. Here are a few quick details. We'll post the recording and attendee list on the Low Carbon Transportation Incentives webpage in about 2 weeks, and we'll email meeting registrants when that information is available. Staff will also share the link to the webpage in the chat. Today's materials, including the agenda and slides, are also on that page. To ask questions during question and answer sessions, please use the raised hand feature in Zoom or press #2 on your phone. You can also email us at cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov or GOV. And we'll keep an eye on that inbox. And I believe staff already dropped the email address in the chat for you. If there are any disruptions during today's meeting, we might need to reschedule the meeting. Please ensure that your name is visible on Zoom or adjust your phone number to the last 4 digits if you're calling in. We also have staff that are looking at that on our end in case anyone isn't able to switch to the last four digits of their phone number. Now, let's go over today's agenda. Next slide. Thanks. We just covered the welcome and housekeeping portion of our agenda. Next, I'll provide an introduction and overview about the Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan before we get into the details of specific incentive projects. Then, we'll go over the individual and community mobility incentive projects. We also refer to these as light-duty vehicle purchase incentive projects and sustainable community-based transportation equity incentive projects, or mobility projects. Today, we'll cover the mobility projects first. Then, we'll take a short 5-minute break, followed by our medium and heavy-duty on and off-road vehicle and equipment incentive projects. Each of the incentive project portions of our agenda include time for you to ask questions and provide comments. We'll follow up with a final open comments and question and answer session and wrap up with a summary and next steps. Next slide, please. In this section, I'll cover a bit about CARB and our incentive programs, as well as what the funding plan is. Then, I'll go over our investment programs, the policy drivers and guiding documents for the funding plan, our cumulative funding, and how much of it has gone to priority populations, and this year's budget passed by the legislature late last week. Lastly, we'll go over how we report progress on our incentive projects and talk about this year's community survey. Next slide, please. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, is part of a three-tiered system for improving air quality. This is comprised of the federal government through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or US EPA, CARB at the state level, and regional air quality agencies. In general, the US EPA has authority over interstate sources, such as trains, airplanes, and ocean-going vessels. CARB has authority over mobile sources, such as vehicles and equipment that are in or enter California. The regional air quality agencies have authority over local, stationary sources, such as refineries, automotive shops, and gas stations. CARB sets California's own health-based air quality standards statewide for vehicles, fuels, consumer products, and sources of toxic air contaminants. It is the only state permitted under the Federal Clean Air Act to set its own requirements for motor vehicles. CARB also sets significant goals and develops and implements programs to address greenhouse gas emissions. California needs significant reductions in oxides of nitrogen, or NOx, in order to support our state implementation plan to meet federal regulations. In this regard, CARB is especially focused on significant reductions in emissions from light-duty vehicles, as well as medium and heavy-duty on- and off-road vehicles and equipment. And this includes reducing vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. Next slide, please. Moving on to CARB's incentive programs. This slide shows CARB's broad portfolio of funding that it administers to improve air quality, enhance community protection, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Today's presentation focuses on the two programs shown in the dark blue boxes, low carbon transportation and the air quality improvement programs. Each incentive program has its own distinct goals that support the state of California's broader strategy. It's important to maintain the integrity of each program's goals to ensure that the state achieves both immediate air quality benefits and that it supports the innovative technologies necessary to meet the state's vision of a zero emission economy. Additionally, outside of CARB, other federal, state, and local agencies have complementary funding sources as well. Examples of these include the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program and the Strategic Growth Council's community-based projects. We regularly coordinate with our sister agencies on these investment programs. Next slide, please. The Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan is an annual, detailed guide for how CARB will allocate or assign any funds appropriated or designated to it by the legislature annually through the state budget. Through the plan, CARB staff aims to meet California and CARB goals to improve air quality and reduce the negative impacts of climate change. CARB staff also aims to meet community and business needs. Where any funding appropriations allow for CARB to allocate funds to different incentive projects, that's where we collaborate with you and other interested parties on how those funds should be allocated. Lastly, the plan is a way for us to refine and improve how the projects work. I'll talk more about this in a couple of slides. I'd like to note that we have a new infographic on our website, to help people better understand what the funding plan is. Staff will drop the link to that in the chat. Next slide, please. This slide shows the funding plan development timeline, which aligns with the state budget development timeline. Our June kickoff workshop, which is today, begins the official process for us to collaborate to develop the funding plan, with mid-June to mid-August being our main time to do that, as well as the formal 30-day public review and comment period from about mid-October to about mid-November to review the proposed plan before the board meeting. We'll hold a second workshop around mid-August to discuss the draft ideas we've developed in collaboration with you and other interested parties. In December, we begin to implement the changes approved by the board into the various incentive projects. We also use the December evening community meeting to reflect on how the development process went so we can improve it for the following year. I'd like to point out that while this process may look smooth, it's anything but. We're constrained by the June 15th legislative budget deadline, and we may receive trailer budget bills toward the end of the legislative session, such as for our Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and that further constrains us. This year, an odd-numbered year, the legislative session ends on September 12th. But rather than push our process out further, we stick to our timeline to get the dollars out the door quickly to program administrators so we can spend the incentive funds quickly and get them to the people and businesses that need them. Otherwise, we risk the possibility of the legislature pulling back the funds. Next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, the plan is a way for us to refine and improve how the incentive projects work. For example, last year, one policy change was to direct last year's Clean Off-Road Equipment Project limited funds only to small businesses and public agencies. This is because many of them struggle to have the funds needed to be able to purchase this type of equipment. For the Driving Clean Assistance Program, we increased the loan cap amount from $30,000 to $45,000 for financing assistance because we heard from community members and organizations that people needed a higher loan amount to be able to purchase the types of vehicles they need and want. Next slide, please. The funding plan for clean transportation incentives covers projects under the Air Quality Improvement Program and the Low Carbon Transportation Program. The Air Quality Improvement Program, or AQIP, was created in 2007 and has served as the foundation for the Low Carbon Transportation Program. AQIP is funded by smog abatement and vehicle registration fees that are deposited into the Air Pollution Control Fund, or APCF. This program focuses on zero-emission, heavy-duty projects that reduce criteria pollutants and air toxics. The Low Carbon Transportation Program is part of the California Climate Investments. California Climate Investments is funded by proceeds from the sale of state-owned allowances from quarterly cap-and-trade auctions that are deposited into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This program has also received funding from the General Fund and other one-time funding sources, and together, these investments support CARB's advanced technology, clean transportation incentive projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions in priority populations. Next, I'll go over our cumulative funding and this year's proposed appropriations in a little bit. Next slide, please. It's not only funding sources that drive how we develop our funding plan. We also look to support strategies and follow the guidance outlined in numerous other documents, such as the Senate Bill 350 Low Income Barrier Study, the Mobile Source Strategy, and the Senate Bill 150 report. Additionally, the funding plan supports executive orders and legislative mandates, such as the governor's executive orders on zero-emission technologies and also equity, and the California Sustainable Communities and Climate Protection Act. We also refer to strategy documents such as the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, which builds on executive orders targeted to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in transportation. Next slide, please. Over the past decade, funds allocated to the variety of incentive projects in our portfolio that have benefited priority populations have increased overall. Earlier projects, such as the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project and the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP, focused on getting zero-emission vehicles and equipment into the mainstream. In fiscal year 2013-14, greenhouse gas reduction funds became available, and CARB was directed to tailor incentive projects toward people who live in disadvantaged communities. This is around the time the first Clean Cars for All projects began in the South Coast and San Joaquin Valley Air Districts. As the graph shows, in fiscal year 2013-14, 0% of our incentive funds were specifically directed toward priority populations. As projects matured and more projects launched, we and our partners began to increase the percentage of funds benefiting priority populations. In fiscal year 2021-22, 53% of funds benefited priority populations. And for the past 2 fiscal years, 60% of funds benefited that same group. While only the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund requires a priority populations target, we apply the target to all the investments we make through the Clean Transportation Incentives Program. Next slide, please. The table on this slide includes the funding for clean transportation incentives that was proposed in the May revision to the governor's proposed budget. However, late last week, the legislature passed the state budget, so we'll be sharing a few updates verbally. The budget that was passed by the legislature last week included approximately $35 million for the Air Quality Improvement Program, which funds projects to reduce air pollution from the logistics, goods movement, off-road, warehouse, and port sector, with a focus on zero-emission projects. In recent years, this funding has supported zero-emission truck loans, vouchers for zero-emission off-road equipment through the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, and funding to support innovative strategies to help small fleets get into zero-emission vehicles through our innovative small e-fleet pilot project. While not listed on the slide, the budget passed by the legislature also includes approximately $132 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund for the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Program, which is better known as HVIP. It's important to note that even though the state budget for general fund dollars has been passed, the legislature and the governor's office are still negotiating the final budget for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and they have until September 12th to pass bills that could amend the state budget by adding or removing funds that were previously appropriated. In the May revision, the governor identified high-speed rail and wildfire prevention and control as key priorities, with the expectation that the administration and the legislature would continue negotiations to design a complete greenhouse gas reduction fund expenditure plan. Finally, of note, this year, the legislature took early action to appropriate an additional $17 million for the regional Clean Cars for All program, bringing the total appropriation to $19.8 million. Of this amount, funding was appropriated exclusively for the regional Clean Cars for All program and will be prioritized for air districts that have insufficient funds to meet demand. The funding was appropriated through Assembly Bill 100, which was signed into law on April 14th. Of these funds, roughly $11.6 million will be allocated to the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and $7.1 million will be allocated to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District for their respective Clean Cars for All programs. CARB staff is currently working with the air districts to finalize grant agreements for the funding. Next slide, please. In addition to our investment targets, CARB also reports regularly on how our investments and projects are progressing. Progress reports are often provided in the form of formal documents and public-facing tools, such as dashboards, that display program data in various ways. As you'll hear in later presentations, staff continues to define metrics for the projects we fund, collect data from these projects, and find ways to improve upon the way we report outcomes from the investments we make. Apologies, next slide, please. The funding plan team wants to ensure that we provide a wide variety of ways that everyone, especially community members, can engage with CARB staff throughout the funding plan development process. One way community members can engage with us is through participation in daytime workshops and work groups and/or monthly evening community meetings. We realize not everyone may feel comfortable talking in these forums, so we also offer one-on-one meetings as well as a community survey. This year, we created an online request form for you to request a one-on-one meeting. Staff will drop the link for this in the chat. We're also in the process to update the community survey we began to offer in 2022. As soon as the community survey is ready, we'll send an email to our Clean Transportation Incentives listservs to let everyone know. Additionally, as I previously mentioned, you'll also have an opportunity to review and comment on the proposed funding plan when it's released around mid-October. I'll now hand things off to Nicole, who will facilitate our comments and questions session on what you've just heard me present on.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Okay, I was getting a little bit of feedback for a second. All right, so we're going to open the floor now for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. To ask a question or make a comment, if you are online, the desktop version of Zoom, click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are using Zoom on your phone, tap Raise Hand in the More tab. And by phone, press the number 2 to raise *2 to raise your hand. You can also email questions to cleantransportationincentives@arb.gov. This email address will also be posted in the chat. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question. Once your line is open, state your name and affiliation, if any, before speaking. And if you're emailing, our email monitor will notify us of any questions that come in. We have up until 1:28. I guess we'll give it a few more minutes than what was originally slotted for questions and comments. Please raise your hand now. All right. Marissa Brown, I'm about to unmute you.
Hi, thank you. Marissa Brown with the Green Lighting Institute, Transportation Equity Program Manager. My question is based on the fiscal year 2025 to 26 proposed budget slide. There was some additional breakdown that was verbally shared that isn't necessarily on the slide. Can you just repeat what was verbally shared for this particular slide?
Hi, Marissa. I think you're talking about slide 13. Maybe, Gretchen, we could go back to that one.
Yes, this one.
Okay. As far as what was not shown on the slide, the legislature included approximately 132 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund, and that's for the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Program, which is also known as HVIP. Separate from that, there was an early action item by the legislature for an additional $17 million, and that's for the Regional Clean Cars for All program. Did you want did you want the specifics of what goes
Yes,
to
and
which
I think you
district?
mentioned the air districts as well.
Yeah. So I'll note that the 17 million, that brings the total appropriation to $19.8 million. And then $11.6 million is allocated for San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and $7.1 million allocated to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right, thank you for that. I am not seeing other hands. So do we have any questions via the email or the inbox? Give it a second.
We do not.
We have another hand. All right. Ayush, I'm sorry if I butcher your name. Ayush Baraktumar. I'm gonna unmute you. Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yes, hello. Good evening. Could you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. My question was the slide 13, which we saw. Does that also include a budget announced for the California core program as well, or that will be covered later?
The 35 million for AQUIP, you're asking?
No, I was asking, is there a percentage or a dollar value for the California core program? So clean off-road equipment, I think that's the full form. Is it budgeted for that for next year, this year?
We will get into that in the later presentation by my colleague Matt Williams. He'll go over the medium and heavy duty projects and if there's any discussion of money that would go to any of the projects like the core clean off-road equipment project. Hang tight on
Understood.
that one.
No worries. Thank you so much.
All right, next I think we have Erica Baker. I am about to unmute you. Oh, someone else did it for me.
Thank you. This is Erica with Model 1 Commercial Vehicles. I'm sorry for bringing up this question again, but can you just reiterate? Are you saying there will be a continuation of HVIP funding in the next fiscal year? And then regarding the comments on the Air District funding, can you repeat what funding source those allocations come from?
Yeah, so the 35 million for AQUIP, CARB is able to decide how that should be allocated among different medium and heavy duty projects. And that happens in collaboration with the public. As far as the $132 million that the legislature passed, that was from the Air Pollution Control Fund, specifically for HVIP. So yes, HVIP would be receiving that $132 million. And then as far as the amounts for the $17 million going to the Clean Cars for All, again, it's $11.6 million going to the San Joaquin Valley Air District and $7.1 million going to the Bay Area Air District.
So can we interpret that to mean that HVIP will have funding, but air districts will not have medium heavy duty vehicle funding?
I know that the air districts receive funding different sources. So the specific 11.6 and 7.1 million, those are specifically for the Clean Cars for All program. So yes, those are not for any kind of medium or heavy duty programs. And then the 132 million that goes to HVIP would need some other staff that are more integrally involved with HVIP and other air district programs that would receive the medium or heavy duty funds. But that may be something that maybe we would get into later as well.
Okay, but we're not going to see like Carl Moyer or CAP funding come through the air districts based on this.
So the funding plan actually doesn't include Carl Moyer and other funding. So that's where in an earlier slide, what was it? Gretchen, maybe we could go back to slide 6. So this slide, it shows a variety of CARB incentive programs, including Carl Moyer and other things like that. But in the funding plan, we're really just focused on the air quality improvement program, the low carbon transportation. So I'm not able to
maybe speak out of turn. My understanding is that Carl Moyer's funding is the same as it has been in prior years. This is not what we're talking about today, but if your question is like, will Moyer receive funding? So far, yes. So
Yes.
sorry, Steph, I just
Just to jump in, yeah, as a part of this year's budget, the Carl Moyer program is slated to receive the 130 million, which is what the program's been getting for a number of years. And also you can see on this slide, there are a number of other programs that are administered by the different air districts as well. But yes, the districts do have access to other fund sources for medium and heavy duty projects, and Carl Moyer is one of them. But again, as Steph and Nicole iterated earlier, is that, today we're talking about the low carbon transportation funding plan, which includes just AQIP and the low carbon transportation program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, next I think we have Lynette Sapienza. I am about to unmute you. Or I'm trying to. Interesting. Oh, there we go.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Lynette, and I'm supporting Dome Partnership, and we're supporting Mitra EV. I noticed we talked a lot about medium and heavy duty vehicles, and you also mentioned Clean Cars for All. A lot of the small businesses are really interested in getting into those 2A kind of trucks. They're easier, they're cheaper, they're less, let's say, restrictive, and they cause less nerve, if you will, when entering the electric vehicle marketplace. Do you know if those 2A trucks will be covered under any of these programs this year?
I think that will have to be answered by staff, and it's possible it could be covered in the medium and heavy duty presentation. So I don't know if there's any medium and heavy duty staff on right now that would like to respond to that question.
I can speak to that. This is Inder from the HVIP program. Currently, Class 2A. So HVIP is really designed for heavy duty commercial applications. And so the 2A market, in particular pickup trucks, aren't classified as heavy duty trucks for commercial purposes under HVIP today. And we don't anticipate that changing. And we can kind of talk more about the incentive structures, kind of about those lower classes, but that's kind of been the stance of HBIP for quite a while. So.
Olivia, did you have something to add on Clean Cars for All?
Yeah, I can just add that for Clean Cars for All, the program is focused on low-income individuals who have a vehicle to scrap. So in an instance where someone wanted to scrap a vehicle and get a plug-in hybrid electric or fuel cell to a truck, they could explore that option. If they're going through the regional Clean Cars for All programs, there is eligibility the vehicle lists of what you can get funding for. So I can point you to those to see if there's any of those 2A trucks that are eligible for Clean Cars for All.
No, I appreciate it. And if it's possible, I mean, I recognize the intent of the programs, but I just want to make sure that we're not overlooking our small businesses. You've got your HVACs and, your solar, and most of those folks enter, the small business industry with like a smaller vehicle, like a pickup truck, before they work their way up into those larger, medium size vehicles. So I do feel there could be a gap in the funding there to support those small business owners. I just want to throw that out there and see if there's any way to bring that up in future legislative discussions.
I appreciate that, Lynette. Thank you. All right. I think our next commenter is Laura Henkels. I'm about to unmute you. right, hold on. I am clicking the button, but it doesn't appear to be.
Oh, there we go.
There we
Sorry.
go. All right.
Hi, this is Laura Hinkles. I'm the grants manager for clean energy fuels. And I think this got answered, but I just want to make sure. On that budget screen, I just wanted to get a little clarification on where it says no proposed medium and heavy duty incentive projects. Does that mean just for these two areas that we're talking about in this specific module and not overall?
So on slide 13, the second, I'll call it like the bullet toward the end that says no proposed funding. So yes, for our various different like projects, sometimes we might be allocate or appropriated something like, X amount for specifically for like drayage trucks or something like that. So as of right now, we don't have any proposed funding besides this $35 million for the air quality improvement program. And that funding category or program is really only, like the footnote says, only for medium and heavy duty projects that are targeting air toxics and criteria air pollutants.
Yeah,
Like that's where I'm confused. It says no proposed funding, and then it says only for medium and heavy duty.
yeah, thanks, Laura. Happy to jump in here, Graciela Garcia. So the presentation was and slide was drafted before the budget was passed, and so the verbal updates that Steph gave during the presentation and her speaking notes is a more accurate depiction. And so there is funding for the HVIP program, and so that was through the 132 million that was identified in the budget bill specifically for HVIP. And then the air quality improvement program funding will also go towards some of our other heavy duty projects as well. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit later in the presentation as well.
Okay, thanks. I guess this is just an example of the human brain seeing the word no and getting all scared.
No, to be fair, there's the what is technically in a budget versus there's a lot.
Okay, thank you so much.
But just to clarify again, though, there is no funding included in the budget as of right now for the individual and community mobility projects, so on the light duty side.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Grace. All right, next we have Chris Chavez. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you so much for this information. Chris Chavez with Coalition for Clean Air. Just really quickly on the process, I know we've had some discussions about the process itself and just wanting to make sure that we are continuing to maximize the ability to weigh in and have be able to raise issues. I know that there is going to be that summary of the concepts that in lieu of a draft funding plan. Obviously, the more detail and information that you can provide, the better in that to give folks enough time and enough context to be able to provide comments. Relating to just in terms of kind of the programs itself, for Clean Cars for All, just want to again reiterate our continued support for making sure that both the regional and statewide program are able to continue to function. Fortunately, the early action that was taken in the budget did provide a little bit of a reprieve to the district-based regional programs. But as we know, that was not a significant amount of funding. So being able to make sure that those programs can continue operating, the 85% of folks who live within their jurisdiction, I think is, from our perspective, is going to be absolutely imperative. So we continue to work on that, continue to work with CARB on that as well, and would urge that to be one of the considerations is to create this funding plan. Relating to the medium and heavy duty sector, I know that we're going to have a little bit further of a discussion on that. Some of my colleagues may have more detailed comments, but just wanted to point out that with the U.S. EPA's inaction on the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation, these incentive programs are going to be absolutely vital in facilitating that transition to zero emission trucks. So, obviously you have to deal with the budget that you're given by Sacramento, but to the greatest extent possible, just accelerating that turnover of old polluting diesel trucks really is something that I think many of us, and certainly the clean transportation field, would like to see. So I'll defer my comments to those who might have more substantial issues or substantive comments on medium heavy duty, but just wanted to voice my support on that. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. All right, so we did have a question come in via the email, so I'm going to read that now. This is from Brian Petrovic. I'm a senior engineer with the city of Sunnyvale. I had a couple of questions regarding funding incentives. Is there any funding set aside for communities looking to early adopters? We are looking into obtaining both an EV loader and a fire truck, but this would only happen if funding support was available. Lastly, to incentivize public adoption, especially at disadvantaged communities, with the BAAD, not totally sure, maybe Bay Area,
Air District.
oversee dissemination of incentive funds. I'm trying to understand where to direct people that are interested in participating. So I think rewinding, it looks like, are there funds for an EV loader and fire truck? And then also in disadvantaged communities in the Bay Area, who's administering funds? Okay, yeah. I don't know if Inder wants to speak to I don't know if we fund fire trucks in core or in HVEP or not.
What type of trucks were they again? I'm sorry.
Fire trucks.
Fire trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't currently have any in the HVIP catalog right now for fire trucks. We do have some chassis that are incomplete, but I don't think that any of those have been fitted with um, fire chassis bodies. So at this point, I would suppose no, but that's just because we don't have any available. And
I
so
would say is maybe take a look. So for both core, the off-road program, and HVIP, we do have online catalogs of what is available. So if you go and take a look, those are the programs that are administered via the state through our grantee CalStart. To your question about where does the Bay Area fit in, as we've discussed, there are other programs within CARB's larger incentive portfolio. So we have Moyer, which is administered by the Air District. We also have the AB 617/CAP program, which is administered by them. So there's both. So I would encourage you to look at those catalogs. And if you have specific questions, please email us and we can follow up. All right. And that is it. No more hands. I think we can carry on, Steph.
Thanks. And just saw a comment. There's someone that wanted to also the fire truck question.
Sorry, where?
Apologies. Just in the staff.
Peter, did you want to pipe in? I guess just cribbing from what Peter Christensen, who oversees our heavy duty programs, has noted that fire trucks would be eligible if a manufacturer applied for the truck to be eligible. And then also, of course, loaders are eligible in core. So again, take a look at the catalog and you can see if the equipment's there.
So my apologies, Nicole. I was on mute when I tried to chime in. But yeah, that's correct. I mean, if they would be eligible by all intents and purposes. And so I think the key is if there was a manufacturer interested in producing those, then they would just need to go through the process of getting approved and eligible for HVIP, which they can always reach out to anyone of the CARB staff to start that process. So.
Okay, moving on to our next section. So now get more into the details of the incentive projects, and we'll begin with our individual and community mobility incentive projects. These terms might sound a little different to some of you. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we also refer to the individual incentive projects as light-duty vehicle purchase incentive projects. And for the community mobility incentive projects, we also refer to those as the sustainable community-based transportation equity incentive projects. So today, we'll cover the community mobility incentive projects first. And so now I'll hand things over to my colleague, Catherine. Oh, I'm sorry, that should say Leilani. Wait, now I'm getting confused. Yes, I'm handing things over to my colleague, Catherine, to present on this topic.
Thanks, Steph. We got a lot of presenters and a lot of acronyms, so bear with us on this one. So my name's Catherine Canepa. I'm an air pollution specialist here at CARB, and I'm going to provide a brief overview and then I'll pass it over to Leilani. So our individual and community mobility incentives help CARB to make progress on our institutional goals and help aid California communities. Overall, these investments strive to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and criteria pollutants to improve air quality and public health, create an environment that accelerates zero-emission vehicle deployment to transform the state's fleet to clean vehicles, prioritize funding projects within priority population areas to address socioeconomic disparities, in particular through funding community-identified solutions that help improve access to key destinations and increase the number of mobility options available to communities. And lastly, these investments strive to alleviate environmental harms that are disproportionately felt by some communities due to historical inequities. I realize I forgot to ask to switch the slide. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And then just a note that state level directives, including Assembly Bill 617, Senate Bill 375, and Senate Bill 350 are a few of the drivers behind these goals that are on the slide as they focus on improvements to environmental health. As an agency, CARB incorporates the equity principles of these directives into the fabric and design of every project and program. Next slide, please. So next, I'll provide an overview of the individual and community mobility incentive offerings. These projects, which include both vehicle purchase incentives and clean mobility investments, aim to improve the accessibility of clean transportation to communities throughout the state and facilitate the transition to more sustainable modes. Environmental harms are felt inequitably across the state, and these programs are intended to tailor investments to best meet the needs of different individuals and communities. So first, on the left side of the circle, we have the light-duty vehicle purchase incentives. These projects focus on supporting individuals and households with the purchase of zero-emission vehicles. On the slide is a high-level description of what each project is designed to do. To ensure we're meeting communities where they are, the programs use a variety of methods to distribute incentives: needs-based model, application prioritization, technical assistance, and more. The projects in this portfolio on the left side of the circle include the Clean Cars for All programs, the Driving Clean Assistance Program, the California E-Bike Incentive Project, Access Clean California, and the California Integrated Travel Project, or CAL-ITP. On the right of the circle, we have the Clean Mobility Incentives, which aim to address the transportation needs of Californians living in disadvantaged and low-income communities. These were developed with comprehensive community input and feedback. These projects provide funding to plan for and implement a variety of clean mobility solutions that can help folks get around without owning a personal car. The projects in this portfolio include statewide clean mobility options vouchers, regional clean mobility pilots, planning and capacity building grants, clean mobility in schools grants, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project grants. Next slide, please. So the long-term plan for light-duty vehicles and clean mobility projects serves as CARB's long-term investment strategy for this portfolio of projects. It receives a major update every 3 years and covers 3 years of funding. The plan is a roadmap showing how state incentives can help sustain and grow the light-duty zero-emission vehicle market in California and provide solutions at the community level for clean transportation options, including zero-emissions mobility options. The long-term plan identifies priority areas for investment and and outlines an estimated 3-year funding need for these programs. The long-term plan document includes several key elements. So first, it provides an update on California's light-duty zero-emission vehicle market, including a trajectory analysis to reaching 2030 ZEV goals. It includes a further discussion of what it would take to achieve a sustainable light-duty zero-emission vehicle market, touching on vehicle choice diversity, consumer awareness, and the impact of federal policies. It includes a light-duty vehicle affordability analysis, given the current incentive landscape. And it includes an analysis of 3-year funding need for CARB's light-duty vehicle and clean mobility projects, as well as a discussion of staff's longer-term vision for these projects. Lastly, the long-term plan serves as the annual supplemental report required by the 2018-19 Budget Act. CARB staff will be holding public work groups in the coming months to discuss updated information that will be included in this year's plan. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Leilani, who will go over the community mobility incentive projects.
Thanks, Catherine. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leilani Viramontes. I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB, and today I'll be discussing CARB's suite of mobility projects, formerly referred to as the Sustainable Community-Based Transportation Equity Incentive Projects. Next slide, please. So this figure outlines the various mobility projects. So this includes the regional and statewide clean mobility options, clean mobility in schools, planning and capacity building, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project. Please note that the mobility projects were not allocated funds in the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. Regional Clean Mobility Options, or CMO, were the first 7 initial pilots that provided shared mobility services. The pilots have helped CARB gain valuable insights into the clean mobility landscape. Statewide CMO was created following the initial pilots, which provides funds for small-scale shared mobility projects and community transportation needs assessments. Clean Mobility in Schools supports clean transportation, air quality improvement, and education projects at K-12 public schools. The Sustainable Transportation Equity Project funds complementary investments to expand mobility choices and reduce vehicle miles traveled in response to community-identified priorities that may include transit, active transportation infrastructure, workforce development, and other activities. And lastly, planning and capacity building are community-led planning projects that include dedicated, localized technical assistance. Next slide, please. What became the Regional Clean Mobility Pilot Projects originated as the Targeted Car Sharing and Mobility Options in Disadvantaged Communities Pilot Project, which will be referred to as Disadvantaged Communities Pilots, or simply pilots for the remainder of this slide. And this was in the fiscal year 2014-15 funding plan. In April of 2015, CARB's competitive solicitation closed for the Disadvantaged Communities Pilots. Subsequently, $3 million was awarded to 2 regional electric vehicle, or EV, pilots. In April of 2017, CARB's competitive solicitation for the Disadvantaged Communities pilots closed, and subsequently $9.5 million was awarded to 3 pilots, 1 regional EV car-sharing pilot expansion, 1 EV shuttle service project, and the agricultural worker van pool project. In fiscal year 2017-18, another $8 million funded 2 pilot expansions and the agricultural worker van pool expansion. Lastly, in fiscal year 2019-20, $8.6 million funded expansions of 3 pilots and 1 EV shuttle service. Next slide, please. 5 of the 7 regional pilots are completed. This includes the agricultural worker van pools pilot project, car sharing and mobility hubs at affordable housing pilot project, ecosystems of shared mobility in the San Joaquin Valley, Liftline Paratransit Dial-A-Ride EV transition program, and the Valley Air ZEV mobility pilot project. Blue LA's e-bike library component finishes in 2025 as final reporting for Blue LA and our community car share wraps up later this year. Car sharing and CARB's regional clean mobility pilot projects had a positive impact on people's daily lives and their well-being. CARB asked that the regional pilots improve priority populations' access to goods and services, such as grocery shopping, medical appointments, and other important errands or social visits. This was found to be true by a UC Berkeley study of Sacramento's Our Community Car Share. The study surveys reported user increases in accessibility to essential destinations such as schools, 75%, grocery shopping, 71%, and healthcare, 69%. The regional Clean Mobility Pilots programs transitioned to the statewide Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Program, which is discussed in the next few slides. Next slide, please. The statewide Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Program, or CMO, funds clean mobility project vouchers for projects such as zero-emission car sharing, on-demand shuttles, bicycle and scooter sharing, and other clean mobility project modes intended to fill a community's transportation gaps for residents and provide access to key destinations. CMO previously funded community transportation needs assessments as well, but needs assessments efforts have now moved under the Planning and Capacity Building umbrella. This program has received $91.4 million allocated to date and has funded 36 community transportation needs assessments and 38 mobility projects over 2 funding windows. It's important to note that statewide CMO is administered by a great team that works hard to make sure the program operates consistently and supports its 74 grantees. The administrator team consists of CARB's grantee CalSTART and their partners Shared Use Mobility Center, Emergent Labs, and HeartQuest Strategies. Next slide, please. For a full list and project descriptions for statewide CMO's 74 awardees, we encourage you to visit the Clean Mobility Options website, linked on this slide, and my colleague can also drop the link in the chat. The administrator team provides robust technical assistance to awardees to support project implementation. They also manage the Clean Mobility Equity Alliance, a peer learning network open to all clean mobility equity project implementers and partners, not limited to CMO grantees. CEMIA hosts monthly working groups, provides tools and resources to members, and hosts the annual Clean Mobility Forum. The Clean Mobility Forum is an event focused on shared mobility and clean transportation, convening CEMIA members, mobility project awardees, mobility operators, community-based organizations, and other experts in the clean transportation field. Potential policy changes staff will be exploring this year are modifying the current award amount and grant length for mobility projects, modifying the application process, and releasing a new administrator solicitation. Next slide, please. Clean Mobility in Schools funds a variety of clean transportation and supporting projects in and around school communities. Grants provide funding for zero-emission fleets, equipment, energy projects, active and alternative modes of transportation, planning, education, curriculum, workforce training, and more. Grants are typically $5 to $10 million and must include at least one public school to be involved and benefit from the grant. $62.1 million has been awarded to 8 unique projects selected from 2 solicitations. Potential policy changes staff will be exploring includes expanding project community eligibility criteria. Next slide, please. The first 3 Clean Mobility in Schools projects were impressively able to identify solutions to the unforeseen challenges COVID-19 injected just as the projects prepared to launch in May of 2020. Each project featured strong partnerships with local leaders, utility providers, project partners, technology vendors, and dependable and innovative staff working together to create a sustainable, impactful mode of clean mobility. For example, 39 battery electric school buses were deployed in disadvantaged communities, and infrastructure also supported early pilots of vehicle-to-grid technology. 30 e-bikes launched at Lincoln High School in San Diego, which provided both students and staff to experience mobility without a car. A few of the lessons learned from these first school projects touch on the importance of planning with the broader community schools located within. Building off those insights, the new set of grants were awarded through a joint request for applications in 2023 and launched by September of 2024. Implemented alongside the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project and the Planning and Capacity Building effort, the new projects located in Porterville, Watsonville, Hayward, and San Jose focus on alternative transportation solutions. A few highlights from these include the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure projects, car share and bike share projects, and broad communication and outreach campaigns like open streets, traffic gardens, and transit ambassadors. Next slide, please. The Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP, funds community-led transportation grants that increase access to key destinations while reducing vehicle miles traveled. Each STEP grant includes multiple project types within one priority community that work together to make it easier for people to get around without owning a car. This place-based investment approach encourages growing and building new connections between existing transportation networks. STEP funds a long and flexible list of eligible project types to enable communities to develop holistic projects meeting their specific local needs. STEP project types include planning and community engagement, pedestrian and bike infrastructure, urban greening, zero-emission transit, and more. To date, STEP has been allocated $77.9 million. The funding has gone to 11 implementation grants, 5 of which were awarded in the 2020 solicitation, and 6 of which were awarded in the 2023 joint request for applications. For the next year, STEP will continue supporting existing grantees and improving administrative processes. Grantee feedback, analysis of past applications, and outreach may shape program priorities for a future solicitation. Next slide, please. The 11 implementation projects funded by STEP are located in low-income and disadvantaged communities across the state, primarily within the core of metropolitan areas. While many of these neighborhoods are close to robust local and regional transportation networks, first-mile and last-mile barriers often make it hard to use these systems to access key destinations. With grant amounts generally in the range of $3 to $13 million, STEP has taken the approach of trying to build and strengthen connections to these existing transportation networks, which is fairly unique among the state's transportation funding programs. In 2025, STEP closed out our first 2 grants from the first solicitation, Commerce Moving Forward and the Stockton Mobility Collective grants. STEP grantees have recently received awards in recognition of their work to advance clean mobility in disadvantaged communities. The Stockton Mobility Collective received the Eureka Award from the California Association of Councils of Governments, and San Francisco's Municipal Transportation Agency's Bayview Shuttle received the Opportunity and Empowerment Award from the California chapter of the American Planning Association. Next slide, please. Planning and capacity building, or planning, helps communities lead efforts to find new and better transportation options. It focuses on building local skills and making clean, shared, and active transportation easier to access. These projects include planning for better transportation, job training, and strengthening local organizations, especially in low-income areas with limited options. Planning also aims to include people who haven't been part of transportation decisions in the past. As a dedicated category, $14.9 million has been committed to planning and capacity building. So far, 7 planning grants are in progress, and we plan to fund up to 15 more projects through a new request for applications coming this summer. Based on community feedback, we want to prioritize eligible applications submitted through our upcoming request for applications, even if we can't fund them right away. If additional funding becomes available, those unfunded but eligible proposals will be first in line for support. Next slide, please. CARB has awarded grants to a variety of community-led transportation planning efforts across California. The first 7 projects currently underway focus on areas like Needles, Napa, Sacramento, the San Joaquin Valley, Alameda, and Los Angeles. These projects range from planning safe routes to school and building electric vehicle infrastructure to creating clean transportation mobility hubs. The last 8 projects have been completed, covering places like Bakersfield, South El Monte, Isla Vista, East Oakland, and San Bernardino County. These efforts help lay the groundwork for clean, active, and shared transportation options, while strengthening community involvement and local capacity. Notably, 2 of these planning efforts, led by Omnitrans and City Heights, successfully secured additional funding through STEP, showing strong momentum and community impact. Together, these initiatives are building stronger, more equitable transportation systems that better serve communities with the greatest need for innovative transportation solutions. I'll now pass it along to my colleague to help open the floor for comments and questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Leilani. Appreciate the presentation. Just as before, we're now going to open the floor up for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. To ask a question or make a comment, if you were online using the desktop version of Zoom, please click the raise hand feature under participants. If you are using your phone, raise your hand in the More tab, and you can also press *2 to raise your hand. You can also email questions to the email listed on the slide here, cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. This email address will also be posted in the chat. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, with your question. Once your line is open, state your name and affiliation. Oh, that was a little redundant. All righty. Let's get started. I'm not currently seeing any hands up. We'll give it a second. Any questions in the email?
None yet.
Okay, we did get one kind of in between presentations. I don't think we have a solid answer for it, but I'll read it anyway. So from Judy Bortz, I want to say, from Climate Action California. Climate Action California, along with 6 other organizations, requested a California sales tax holiday for next year via the Senate and Assembly budget committees. Are you aware of this request? Are you aware if this request was met or not? Steph, I'll kick it to you if you have thoughts. To my knowledge, we're not sure, but. Me? All right, well, I'll go ahead and speak for Stephanie to say that I don't think we have an answer to that, Judy. We'll get back to you. I'm not sure we know. But I do now see a hand up from Marissa Brown, if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Marissa Brown, the Green Lining Institute. Just a clarification, so there is no proposed funding for these projects for this fiscal year, but some of the projects are currently in like implementation phase.
Hi, Marissa. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think that's it for questions on this part of the presentation.
Hey, Nicole, I think you had responded to the tax holiday question. Just wanted to add that we can always look into that and follow up with the person.
All right, if we're all done with questions, I think that's me next. Could we go to the next slide, please? Perfect, thank you. So it's me again, hi. I'm going to be providing a brief overview and updates for the light duty vehicle purchase incentive projects, which, as I mentioned before, include the Clean Cars for All programs, the Driving Clean Assistance Program, California E-Bike Incentive Project, Access Clean California Zero Emission Assurance Project, or ZAP, and the California Integrated Travel Project. Next slide, please. So the figure on the slide illustrates the light-duty vehicle purchase incentive projects. In the following slides, I'll be providing updates on each of the projects. I'll provide a quick refresher on what these projects are, starting with the Driving Clean Assistance Program and then moving counterclockwise. So the Driving Clean Assistance Program is a statewide program that helps individuals replace older vehicles with a clean vehicle and offers financial support by way of a vehicle grant or a low-interest loan. Clean Cars for All is run by the 5 major air districts and also provides a scrap and replace incentive in those districts' territories. The California E-Bike Incentive Project offers individuals payment assistance for the purchase of an electric bicycle. The Zero Emission Assurance Project, or ZAP, offers incentives for battery or fuel cell replacements to reduce the risk of buying a used zero-emission vehicle. Cal ITP, or the California Integrated Travel Project, helps support the implementation of contactless payment systems to make riding transit easier. And finally, Access Clean California is an outreach project focused on increasing awareness of the full suite of clean transportation equity incentives. Next slide, please. So first up, we have an update from DCAP. So the Driving Clean Assistance Program expands access to Clean Cars for All incentives up to $12,500 towards the purchase or lease of a zero-emission vehicle outside of the 5 largest air districts to areas of the state that have not had access to a regional Clean Cars for All program. It also connects participants to a capped interest rate loan of 8% and provides incentives towards charging solutions. DCAP is designed to be a complementary option to regional Clean Cars for All by providing a pathway for non-scrap incentives. By enabling both a scrap and a non-scrap option, consumers would be able to literally build their incentive, creating flexibility best suited for them and their needs. DCAP is currently available to all regions of the state and is accepting applications for non-scrap options to participants living in regional Clean Cars for All regions. In addition to providing non-scrap incentives, it also uses the needs-based model, which enables consistent and continuous access to incentives regardless of geography. Next slide, please. So I'll provide a quick status update for DCAP. DCAP is administered by the Community Housing Development Corporation, or CHDC, and provides access to clean and zero-emission vehicles through providing access to CC4A incentives outside of regional CC4A program. And that's currently administered by the 5 largest air districts, and it connects participants to fair financing. To date, around $241 million has been allocated to DCAP. DCAP has been accepting applications from Imperial Valley residents beginning in September 2024 and has since been open to the rest of the state following a monthly staggered rollout in order to ensure equitable access to incentives. As such, as of March 25th of this year, DCAP is now available to regional CC4A regions for non-scrap options. Since the project opened statewide in March, 46 projects have been funded, but over 16,000 applications representing $196 million in demand have been received and are in progress of redeeming services. It should be noted that although 46 projects may seem low, we have to acknowledge that as part of the DCAP application process, there is financial counseling that is conducted with participants that could potentially take up to 3 months to complete. There are no new allocations for DCAP this year, but staff are exploring different ways to align program requirements and eligibility criteria to regional CC4A programs. Next slide, please. The Regional Clean Cars for All program is a scrap and replace program that provides incentives of up to $12,000 to low-income consumers as they replace their higher polluting vehicles with cleaner transportation. The regional programs are currently administered by the 5 largest air districts in California. No funding has been allocated this year, but other funding was recently made available through Carl Moyer State Reserve co-funding and Assembly Bill 100. Since the program inception, $357.5 million have been allocated to the regional programs, and 26,053 vehicles have been replaced. Staff are exploring several potential policy changes that all aim for additional alignment between different incentive programs. For example, we are looking to align on income verification, household size definitions, approved dealer lists, and program closure procedures. Next slide, please. The Zero Emission Assurance Project, or ZAP, was established to help lower-income Californians reduce the risk of buying a used zero-emission vehicle, or a near-zero-emission vehicle, which is also known as a plug-in hybrid, by providing a rebate or vehicle service contract for the replacement battery or fuel cell components. Repair costs are a significant barrier to entry for lower-income Californians. ZAP complements CARB's light-duty vehicle purchase incentive programs, such as Clean Cars for All and DCAP.
Okay.
Sorry, I heard a bit of feedback there. It helps complement Clean Cars for All and DCAP by helping to alleviate low-income residents' concerns about premature battery degradation, resulting in reduced vehicle performance, vehicle depreciation, and costly repairs. In our last 2 public work groups, CARB staff discussed eligibility, policies, and proposed implementation for ZAP. Staff plans to hold one last public work group to discuss launch specifics with the goal of launching the program by the end of the summer. $9.9 million was allocated in 2022, and no new funding has been allocated this year. Next slide, please. Access Clean California helps to streamline access and coordinate outreach for clean transportation incentives in priority communities, with the goal to spread the word about CARB's vehicle purchase incentives to those who need them the most. About $22 million has been allocated to date. Grid Alternatives, the program administrator, organizes a statewide network of 31 outreach partners and counting, an application support web tool called the Benefits Finder, a case management team that helps individuals get their incentive applications in, and a technical assistance and capacity building pilot program dedicated to bringing more nonprofit and community-based organizations into the fold to support communities in learning about and receiving clean transportation incentives. The Access Clean California team has recently grown their outreach network and the capacity of their case management team to respond to needs on the ground. No policy changes are proposed for this year. Next slide, please. The California E-Bike Incentive Project aims to provide electric bicycle or e-bike incentives to low-income Californian residents of 18 years or older. The project goals include reducing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and providing access to clean transportation options for residents who need them the most. Over $2 million has been awarded for e-bike incentives. No funding is allocated in this year's budget. Staff are monitoring the effects of tariffs on supply chains and e-bike prices at the moment. Staff will consider altering the incentive structure in the event tariffs present significant barriers for low-income households to purchase an e-bike with the current incentive amounts. Staff may hold a public work group to solicit feedback on the incentive structure later this year for potential policy changes to the incentive structure. Next slide, please. Since 2022, CARB has engaged the California Integrated Travel Project, or CAL-ITP, to provide targeted payments and data innovation support related to the equitable mobility incentive programs. CAL-ITP is a joint project between Caltrans, which is California's Department of Transportation, and the California State Transportation Agency, which is known as CALSTA. CAL-ITP focuses on challenging policy and technology issues at the intersection of sustainable transportation and payments. CARB and CAL-ITP conducted research about the adoption of contactless payments at EV chargers across the state to help CARB's regulatory teams develop legal requirements for payment acceptance technologies. As a follow-up, CAL-ITP helped structure and deploy a pilot program to utilize contactless payments using prepaid debit cards to distribute charging subsidy funds in partnership with Valley Clean Air Now, or ValleyCan. This research project helped validate bank cards as an innovative, user-friendly, and efficient vehicle for distribution of CARB funds and sparked the ongoing collaboration between our teams. Some of the other projects and deliverables under this contract include contactless Euro payment, MasterCard, and Visa Payments Advisory for EV charging infrastructure, cashback rewards exploration, multiple purse bank cards in the mobility sector, path to inclusion exploration, Clean Cars for All prepaid card procurement, payments transparency research at EV chargers, and eligibility verification improvements. That was a mouthful, so I think I'm going to give the interpreters a moment to catch up. But in a moment, we'll turn it over to Nicole for some question and answer time.
Maybe next slide while they're catching up.
Thanks.
All right, we've heard it before, but once more. We're going to open the floor for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, if you are using the Zoom desktop version, please click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are on your Zoom mobile, go ahead and tap Raise Hand in the More tab, or if you're calling in, press *2 to raise your hand. We also have the email where you can send your questions, again on the slide, clean transportation incentives at arb.ca.gov. And the folks monitoring the email will let me know if anything comes in. All right, let's see if we have any raised hands. Currently, no, but we'll give it a second. Anything on email?
I did
Hey,
get one. Just
Catherine,
give me a
sounds like you're,
second.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead and let Christian Corby go
I see
first
Christian.
while I get the email set.
Sure. Hey, Christian.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Corby, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or Cal ETC. I just wanted to thank you all for providing all this really good information. I don't have anything in the way of like big comments right now. I guess maybe one thing to consider for the future, because as we continue to try to advocate, very strongly for CARBs programs at the legislature, information on like the burn rate you anticipate for the DCAP program could be really useful, so that we can go there and tell the legislature, look, like CARB is anticipated to run out of money. This is an estimate, but on X date or something like that could be really useful, because then we can try to advocate more forcefully for continued funding for these critical programs. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Great. In terms of email questions, we did receive one from Samuel Kilpatrick of the Redwood Coast Energy Authority in Humboldt. Just to be clear, while no new funding has been proposed for DCAP, Regional Clean Cars for All, and Cali Bike, funding allocated for previous fiscal years will carry over to this fiscal year, ? And Olivia, it sounds like you might have an answer to that.
Yeah, and just to introduce myself, I forgot to do that earlier. I'm Olivia Lane. I'm the policy lead for the Regional Clean Cars for All programs. So yeah, there is, it kind of depends on the regional program. So for South Coast, they're expected to remain open through the fiscal year. They have enough funding to get through this year. Same thing for Sac Metro and San Diego. They have funding from previous allocations to remain open through the fiscal year. As for San Joaquin Valley, they will have more funds allocated to them, and so based on their average burn rates, we expect that they would be able to keep funding programs through the through fall of this year. That's just an estimate, but and then for Bay Area, they also have more funds coming through the AB 100 allocation that we mentioned earlier, and so we can expect that funding to last them through the start of next year.
Excuse me, my device is not showing a way to raise my hand, and I have a question, so I just unmuted myself. Would you mind if I asked the question?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Beverly Deschaux. I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association of the Central Coast. I'm wondering if you would please clarify for me exactly who is eligible. So I'm a bit confused between the Clean Cars for All and the DCAP. I understand that the DCAP is income qualified, but the Clean Cars for All, I also understand, is for the 5 major air districts. But then I think I heard you say it's also for all the other air districts. So under what conditions is someone not in the 5 major districts eligible for the Clean Cars for All, with or without a car to turn in? Did I make sense?
Oh, yes, thank you. Can someone from the Clean Cars for All team maybe respond to that question? Olivia, you're also on mute in case you were talking. I wasn't sure. Oh, okay. Let me try and unmute you. Okay. Did that work?
Yes.
There we go. All right.
Yeah, so I think the question was, is there still, like, how did the eligibility requirements compare for the Regional Clean Cars for All program and the DCAP statewide program? Through
Excuse me,
DCAP,
let me clarify. Let me clarify to make it more simple for you to answer, and that is, are people other than low-income people eligible for the Clean Cars for All and in our air district along the Central Coast?
so through DCAP, the statewide program is still just for low-income individuals. So it mirrors Clean Cars for All of the regional programs, that it's a program focused towards low-income folks. Does that answer the question?
So that's the DCAP, but but that's the DCAP. What about the Clean Cars for All, especially with the cash for clunkers kind of thing, the trade-in?
Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing, but DCAP has several options. So there is a Clean Cars for All arm of DCAP, and then also a finance assistance arm of DCAP. So there is Clean Cars for All under the DCAP program. So that's why it's a little confusing. You can either scrap a vehicle to receive an incentive, or you can, if you don't have a vehicle to scrap, you can also receive an incentive through DCAP. So with all of these programs, they are focused towards low-income individuals.
Okay, so all the other air districts beside the main air district, the 5 main ones, are only people are only eligible who are income qualified. I guess it's 300% of the federal poverty level, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so all right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Beverly. I just want to quickly comb through our chat to see if there were any other emailed questions. Okay, so from Marissa Brown, the question is, what is the funding source for the AB 100 early action item for the District Clean Cars for All program? It was said that the legislature issued an early action item for an additional 17 million for regional Clean Cars for All programs. What is the funding source for this?
Hi, Graciela Garcia. It's a great question. Yeah, so the funding source for the early action money for the Clean Cars for All program was the Enhanced Fleet Modernization sub-account. And so those dollars were reappropriated from BAR's program over to the Regional Clean Cars for All program that CARB oversees.
Thanks, Grace. All right, next question from Sam Kilpatrick. As a follow-up, essentially my question is, will these programs continue to be present as long as funding from previous fiscal years is present? I need to go back to see. So your question, just the callback, is related to DCAP and Clean Cars for All and e-bikes. I don't know, that's a more general question, Steph, if you want to handle it, but the response is, if there's funding remaining in the program for the implementation side of things, yes, it's there, but we don't have new funds. Okay. All right. And if we have any more clarification, we can provide that via email. I think there are no more hands raised or questions in the email, so we can move on. Looks like Sean might have some clarifying statements about an earlier question. Would you like to chime in?
Yeah, this is in
Sorry.
response. No problem. I was having mute problems. This is in response to Sam's question, and just quickly wanted to say that the California e-bike incentive project, we're going out with a new solicitation later this year, so we will have an administrator to keep the program going at least for the next 2 or 3 years here. And that's with approximately $18 million.
All right, thanks. All right, that's it for questions. I don't know who, Steph, if you want to take over from here.
Yeah, so we're supposed to have come back from a quick 5-minute break at 2:35. It's now 2:36. So what if we just take a quick 4-minute break and everybody come back at 2:40? Thanks. Right, everyone, it's 2:40. So we'll begin the next portion of our meeting. So continuing the discussion about our incentive projects, this portion of the meeting will focus on our medium and heavy duty on and off-road vehicle and equipment incentive projects. My colleague Matt will present on this topic. Matt?
Thanks, Stephanie, and hello, everyone. My name is Matt Williams. I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB and will be presenting on our medium and heavy duty investments. Overall, next slide, please. Overall, our medium and heavy duty on and off-road equipment investments strive to improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, continue to build on efforts to ensure investments support our equity goals, strategically focus on priority populations by expanding support for small businesses, public agencies, and disadvantaged communities, focus on reducing barriers for small fleets through financial and non-financial mechanisms, and collaborate with community partners, air districts, and other state and local agencies. Next slide, please. The long-term heavy-duty investment strategy is CARB's long-term guidance document for clean transportation incentives funding, that being from low-carbon transportation investments and the Air Quality Improvement Program. It covers 3 fiscal years, beginning with the upcoming budget year, and is updated annually. The strategy serves as a roadmap showing how state incentives can help spark private sector investment and create the partnerships necessary to support the acceleration of clean technology advancement and market deployment in the heavy-duty on and off-road sectors. It identifies key priority areas for investment that will help maintain market momentum to reduce emissions from the heavy-duty space. Each year, the heavy-duty investment strategy document includes several key elements. This year's document will include an updated discussion of how our investments drive technology advancement and market adoption of clean heavy-duty technologies that will allow the state to meet its climate and air quality goals, updates on the current status of clean heavy-duty vehicle and equipment technologies in their respective markets, ways to report on the metrics of investment success, an updated 3-year set of recommendations for heavy-duty vehicle and off-road investments, the ways CARB is focusing investments on the communities and small businesses in greatest need of assistance, and an annual report on the progress we've made towards cleaning up the state's school bus fleet. Next slide, please. Much like our consumer and sustainable equity incentive projects for light-duty vehicles, our heavy-duty projects have typically focused on bringing cleaner technologies to the heavy-duty sector and supporting the state's air quality and climate change goals. All of these projects work together. Shift, demonstration, and pilot projects advance technology and prepare early markets. Voucher incentives reduce the purchase price of commercial options. Truck loans help under-resourced businesses acquire clean technologies, and supporting services like Cal Fleet Advisor help fleets deploy successfully. All of the projects you see here include support for small fleets and businesses, with the Zero Emission Truck Loan Pilot and ISEF, Innovative Small E-Fleets, designed specifically to help meet their unique needs. Next slide, please. The Zero Emission Truck Loan Pilot Program provides loan assistance for the purchase of zero-emission trucks. The program works by providing qualified lenders with a loan loss reserve account. For each qualified loan enrolled in the program, CARB will put 25% of the loan amount into the account. In the event of a loan default, the lender can submit a claim to recover their losses. With these funds available, lenders are better equipped to lend to businesses that need more assistance and may typically offer more favorable terms than they would otherwise qualify for. A total of $14 million is available to support the program. Staff is not recommending policy or funding changes in this year's funding plan. Next slide. The Sustainable Heavy Duty Initiatives for Future Technology, or SHIFT program, previously known as the Advanced Technology Demonstration and Pilot Project Program, was established in 2009. The goal of the program is to accelerate the adoption of pre-commercial technologies into the marketplace and to support commercialized technologies that would benefit from at-scale pilot projects to showcase technical feasibility and economic viability. Since its inception, this program has allocated over $600 million for 35 projects with over 690 vehicles and equipment deployed. In addition to this, the most recent solicitation was held in 2023 and provided $175 million in funding, resulting in 12 new projects, 8 of which have been executed. CARB has also onboarded a third-party administrator, EPRI, and they are facilitating administrative activities to support the CARB project liaisons and grantees with implementation of these projects. Next slide. The Zero Emission School Bus and Infrastructure, or ZESB project, is a joint program between CARB and the California Energy Commission, or CEC. It is designed to replace the oldest public school buses in the state with new zero-emission school buses and their supporting infrastructure. The entire $500 million appropriation has been reserved for 144 projects totaling 1,000 new zero-emission school buses and their supporting infrastructure. We anticipate these projects to be finalized later this year and look forward to having new zero-emission school buses on the road shortly thereafter. Next slide. The Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP, provides point-of-sale discounts to help reduce the upfront cost of zero-emission trucks and buses. By doing so, we're helping to drive the adoption of the cleanest technologies available in the commercial vehicle sector, supporting both air quality and climate change goals. As of November 2024, project funding has been fully subscribed, a strong indicator of robust market interest. We anticipate reopening the program in the third quarter of 2025 using limited funds that became available from canceled or unredeemed vouchers. To date, we've helped fund more than 15,000 vehicles with a total program allocation of $1.64 billion, a significant investment in California's clean transportation future. Next slide. The Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, ISEF for short, offers vouchers for small fleets to access zero-emission technologies. ISEF provides fleets innovative solutions such as all-inclusive leases, truck as a service, rentals, and other mechanisms. ISEF has been allocated $70 million to date and has funded 118 vouchers. The number of vouchers redeemed increases as processing progresses. ISEF is temporarily closed due to the exhaustion of funds driven by high demand. It is anticipated to reopen in August 2025, following the release of an updated implementation manual and system processing updates. The current proposal for this year's funding plan is to allocate $5 million of the AQIP appropriation to continue to support innovative projects. Over the last year, staff has explored new solutions to barriers small fleets face when adopting zero-emission technology, such as access to insurance for heavy-duty ZEVs and how to potentially provide advanced fleet management services for when an entity incorporates a ZEV into their fleet. In addition, staff will continue exploring the potential design of a used truck voucher pilot concept for this fiscal year 25-26. The pilot concept would leverage and build upon the broad portfolio of creative, innovative solutions already in ISEF. Staff held a work group meeting on these concepts on June 13th, 2025. A used vehicle voucher program could help foster the market by reducing costs and increasing the supply of vehicles. It would also allow CARB to collect valuable information to understand challenges as the market develops and to also inform future policies. We would also be careful to not create a program that would inflate the prices. In addition, insurance assistance and ongoing fleet management would help fleets successfully add these vehicles to their fleets. Next slide. The Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, CORE, is a first come, first served program designed to accelerate the deployment of advanced off road technology by making it easier for fleets to access funding. This access to funding helps cover the higher upfront costs that come with new technologies. Additionally, there are extra funding enhancements available for infrastructure that supports the equipment, small businesses, and purchasers domiciled in disadvantaged communities. So far, the project has funded over 3,000 pieces of equipment and supported more than 700 businesses and fleets. CORE has also made it a priority to invest in priority populations, including low income and disadvantaged communities, with 70% of project funds going to these communities. For fiscal year 2025-26, CORE staff are looking at the definition for commercial readiness and considering modifications to the definition, or alternatively, modifying the program to create greater accountability for OEMs entering the CORE catalog. We look forward to gathering information from stakeholders on this in an upcoming work group. Next slide. I believe that is all for the heavy duty portion. We will turn it over for questions and comments.
All right, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. All righty, I will start from the top again. So we'll open the floor now for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. If you want to ask a question or make a comment and you are on Zoom desktop, please click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are on Zoom mobile, tap Raise Hand in the More tab. And if you're calling in by phone, press *2 to raise your hand. And as always, you can email your questions to cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. All right, I will now look to see if there are any raised hands. I think first we'll start with Erica Baker. I'm about to unmute you.
Thank you. Erica Baker with Model 1 commercial vehicles. Do we have any new allocations for ZESB and ISEF in the upcoming fiscal year?
No, there's no allocation specifically for either of those programs. The only heavy duty program that has a prescriptive allocation in the budget as it is existing now is for that $132 million to HFIP from the APCF, the Air Pollution Control Fund. Otherwise, the only other appropriation we're receiving that can be used for heavy duty projects is the $35 million from AQIP, the Air Quality Improvement Program. That's the only money that will have any leverage to or any discretion in how we use it. We haven't finalized exactly how we're going to distribute those $35 million, but we do know that we want to provide funding to ISEF, and at this time I've proposed at least $5 million.
All right, thanks, Erica. So next is Jamie Levin. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. Jamie Levin with the Center for Transportation and the Environment. Matt, what's the latest thinking on, there was the HFIP workshop a few weeks ago and the proposed reduction in the value of those HFIP vouchers. Where is that now in the latest thinking as to what is going to proceed?
I will pass this off to Inder to answer the question, but just first to clarify for everybody that the work group that Jamie is referring to was an implementation work group, which means that that was implementing policy from last year's funding plan. So that doesn't necessarily relate to this year's funding plan, but I'll hand it over to Inder to answer the question.
Yeah, so we've gotten some comments from participants of that implementation work group, and we are discussing that as a team internally, and we are presenting those options to our management team and should get a sign off pretty soon here. And then a final board briefing memo will go out. And so that'll probably be in the next couple weeks.
So Inder, as you know, I submitted some comments both during the workshop, but also in writing. And there are two basic questions. One is how you're going to handle existing vouchers that are not returned, but which the recipients of those vouchers would like to substitute and specifically I'm referring to the fuel cell truck options, potentially substituting if the original OEM was not available, could they substitute it for another one? And would the value of that voucher as it was originally issued remain, or is it contemplated that it would be reduced to the value that you proposed? That's one question. And the second is what your, are we going to see a revision to the proposed reduction in the value, the voucher price before you adopt a proposal for the full board's consideration? Will that be open for further discussion?
So for the first question, I would kind of direct you to the survey that CalSTART sent out to folks that had vouchers for um, particularly some of the manufacturers that were doing fuel cell and giving an option to go ahead and substitute. So that would be the process to kind of go about doing that for a fleet. So definitely look out for that and reach out to CalSTART if you need to have that resent to you. And that will kind of dictate how those vouchers are processed and kind of moved over. As for your second question, I mean, I think that's part of the deliberation process, right? We get these comments and then the management team will kind of convene and we'll come up with a final recommendation. And that particular voucher table would be implemented for immediately. And then as a part of this funding plan cycle, we do envision another process of where we would be reevaluating all kinds of different other options and looking at different voucher amounts. So that would be in the next funding plan.
So back to the first question, are you saying that there is a policy adopted that the vouchers already in hand will retain the original value, which was $270,000 per voucher? Has that decision been made from the survey or not?
So sorry about that. It looked like I went back on mute. Yeah, so that survey is kind of where we are looking at what option folks would want to take, and then from there we would present different options and look at it. But that is something that we are contemplating.
So you haven't decided whether the voucher original value will remain. You're still deliberating on.
Well, that's on a case-by-case basis, Jamie. That's why we have that survey. So we kind of have to go look at each fleet and see what they're asking us to do and what they would like to do. If they're canceling the voucher completely, that's a different scenario. If they want to switch it over, that's a different scenario. That's why we reached out to fleets with open vouchers on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so we're in fact working with some of those fleets, and we just want to get clarification. And I guess what you're saying, each fleet will appeal directly to CARB or through CalSTART to get a final determination on the value of that voucher that they hold.
So what we want them to do, Jamie, is fill out the survey, go ahead and go through that process of deciding what they want to do, if they want to look at canceling the voucher or if they want to transfer it, if they have a manufacturer that they're in line with. And then from there, CalSTART will go ahead and follow up and present the different options depending on what their pathway is. So.
Okay, thank you. So Matt, back to you. So what, in the past, and we've been recipients of CARB's approach for incentive funding, there's been a bulk of money available offered for what I would call smart deployment or pilot deployments, as opposed to HVIP, which is more of a piecemeal approach. Is CARB contemplating in the future programs more of that sort of incentive funding for a larger smart deployment project?
It's funny that you say it that way, because when we were renaming our advanced technology demonstration and pilot projects, which is now called SHIFT, that S could have been SMART as well.
That would have been that you would have been borrowing off of CTE's terminology. So that would have been plagiarism, Matt.
Well, we're glad that we made the choice we made then.
Right.
So our SHIFT project is exactly what you're talking about. SHIFT is our advanced technology demonstration pilot projects, is what it's formerly known as. Either big transformative projects, pre-commercial demonstration of technologies or early commercial market entry and pilot projects to drive market volume. These are exactly what you're referring to. There is no funding in the current budget for Shift. Should we receive funding, we'd be happy to issue another solicitation for Shift, but at this time, there is no proposed funding for Shift, and the appropriation from AQIP is just too small to implement through Shift.
Right.
All right, we have a number of other hands.
Yeah, I'll let it go. That you answered my questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Jeannie.
Real quick, Nicole, just to clarify
go ahead.
for Jamie. So Jamie, if they do end up choosing the option to go ahead and keep their voucher and just change the manufacturer, they would retain whatever voucher amount they originally got. So
okay,
I think, but it is important for them to go ahead and go through that process, right? Decide and see if there's a viable option for them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Inder. Thanks.
Okay, great. Next is Christian Corby. I will ask you to unmute.
Yes, hello again, Christian Corby with Cal ETC. So yeah, thank you again to all of CARB staff for providing this great information on these critical programs. I don't need to tell this group how important these incentive programs are now with losing the Advanced Clean Trucks rule and the limitations of the Advanced Clean Fleets rule now. So I wanted to encourage CARB to continue to provide information on how the incentive amounts are going to be calculated for this coming year and this coming funding plan. As we've submitted comments, I don't need to go over those again, but we do have some concerns that the proposed incentive amounts are going to be too low. And it would be really great to get, to kind of see some of the calculations that were done and the formula that was used, so that we can kind of understand where CARB is at and how they're calculating the incentive amounts. And of course, we don't want fleets, large fleets, the largest especially, getting a windfall based on how much money they're receiving from state incentives and what can be stacked. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're providing enough incentive for those medium-sized fleets to encourage them to make this transition. And then also kind of complementing that would be a kind of a plan over the next maybe 3 to 5 years to step those voucher amounts down. I think providing that signal, although we understand that CARB's budget changes and that table couldn't be set in stone, but just providing that signal to the market that, listen, these incentives are this way now, but we're going to step them down in the future and try to encourage people to adopt sooner could be really useful. So yeah, thank you again for all your hard work, and look forward to keep working with you on this.
Thanks, Christian. We'll be sure to review your written comments.
All right. Looks like next we have Tim McRae. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. So I'm Tim McRae. I'm with the California Hydrogen Business Council. I had similar questions to Jamie, so I'll just try to focus on follow-up. I both also commented verbally and in writing on the size of the incentives as was proposed in the, I think, May 30th sort of workshop on implementation. What I'm unclear about is as CARB leadership and then eventually the board consider the redesign that was discussed in terms of the amounts of incentives, is the $132 million for HVIP, could that potential reduction in amount per truck incentives, particularly for Class 8 fuel cell trucks, could that kick in now, or is what they're considering only going to apply going forward? Because at that meeting they hadn't talked about the $132 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund. They'd only talked about sort of they're expecting money to come back to the program in Q3, and so I'm just trying to figure out when the decision will be made on when the incentives will be adjusted, if at all, and then secondly, what money that applies to.
Inder?
Yeah, so the incentive, proposed incentive table will be finalized in the next couple of weeks. That would apply for in the upcoming implementation manual release, which will be shortly before we reopen for HVIP in Q3. So that would apply immediately, right, to any funds that would be available. And then we are also proposing, looking at everything again in the funding plan. And so, if there were any changes that came up in the funding plan, then that would be applicable starting January 1st, and that would be applicable to any funds that would be allocated in the budget process this year.
Got it. So there are essentially two different times that you guys will be deciding. First, sort of immediately, and what applies to whatever money you have, and then secondly, in the next sort of funding cycle, you'll take additional input if it's not working, or if people are saying no, please redesign it in this way.
Yeah, both. Those are both options. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Tim. Next we have Eleni Petro. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question.
All right, you seem to have muted yourself again. We heard you for a second. There we
Hi,
go.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you so much. And thank you for clarifying that the focus of today's presentation is on AQIP and the low carbon transportation programs. I just want to take this opportunity to reiterate a comment that we provided during a previous comment period last year, that when considering implementation and administration policies for programs, we really encourage CARB to evaluate the intent and effectiveness of applicant compliance certification language. So for example, using Moyer as an example, the compliance certification language requires applicants to certify regulatory compliance with any and all regulations under penalty of perjury. And we just think that exposes applicants to unreasonable scrutiny and potential legal action outside of normal compliance enforcement processes. So I know that other CARB funded programs use a similar statement to the same effect, but that doesn't include the additional risk of legal action. So, we understand that the intent of any compliance statement is to help make sure that funds go to good actors that comply with the law. But in this case, it's particularly stringent and potentially prohibitive for certain entities, which we think may limit participation and ultimately the ability to achieve program goals. So when you have to comply current, when you have to certify current compliance with all, all regulations, that might not be feasible for certain applicants who have, extensive operations. And also that language doesn't offer a pathway for applicants acting in good faith to resolve any compliance issues in a timely manner in order to remain in good standing. So we hope that CARB will consider this as it implements its clean air programs and potentially, consider removing any unreasonable legal liability that would currently present a barrier to participation. And we think that revising the language would, can maintain the integrity and the intent of the compliance statement while allowing increased participation and hopefully ultimately still support the Air Resources Board goals. So thank you again for the opportunity to share this comment.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Matt. All right, next we have Salma. Oh, sorry, all right, Salma Ibrahim. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Hi, yes, my name is Salma Ibrahim. I just have two questions, if that's okay. For the HFIP, you mentioned the $132 million. I just wanted to confirm that this would be in addition to any canceled vouchers, and that this would apply only to the standard HFIP category.
The $132 million is in the current proposed budget. As always, a reminder that the budget is not final and things could still change, but that would be the money appropriated for fiscal year 25-26, and then the HFIP program would have the opportunity to use that funding as they see fit in the program. They would do that through their work group and implementation process. I don't believe that the budget language restricts that $132 million to only HFIP standard, but perhaps, Ender, you could clarify.
That is my understanding as well, that we don't have that for sure. We don't know exactly if it's just for standard HVIP or it could be allocated to ISIF, or those decisions haven't been made. So
Okay, thank you. And then, so that would be also in addition to the canceled vouchers?
yes, it would. So the canceled vouchers are going to be released in Q3, so that's prior to this funding plan cycle. And then the decisions about any future allocations will be made in the next couple months, and those will be available on January 1st, that fund, whatever funds were available for HVIP at that point.
Okay, awesome. And then my last question, sorry, is I might have missed this and I apologize if I do, but did you guys mention whether or not there are funds allocated for this year's core?
There is
For
not funding in the budget currently.
Okay, thank you so much.
Though I will note we are launching with fiscal year 24-25 funds this August for core with the 14.97 million that was allocated last year. So just a note on that. All right. Next question. We have a caller with the last four digits as 8576. If you'd like to ask your question, and then we have two more questions after that. Phone number 8576. Asking you to unmute.
Hi, this is Lisa with Tom's Truck Center.
Hi,
I'm the
Lisa.
caller from 866. Okay, good, you can hear me. So first I want to make sure that you guys are aware that some of us have no access in the Zoom meeting to raise our hand. I don't know what the issue is, so there's probably quite a few of us that are in the same situation that can't use that function. It's not available. I don't know why. And then my comments as it relates to specifically the Clean Transportation Funding Program. And I would just want to reflect on the fuel cell vouchers that currently only result in 10% of any ZEV medium heavy duty over the road vouchers from the HFIP program to date. However, currently the fuel cell Nikola vouchers are subject to a large reduction of cancellations, which amount to almost 500 unredeemed vouchers in the program. And so today, we only have 9,500 ZEV medium heavy duty over the road vouchers in the program, with 50% of them redeemed. Of that, 1,000 of those are fuel cells, with 500 Nikola unredeemed. So we have a 5% amount of vouchers that have been delivered or potentially being delivered as it relates to fuel cell, compared to 9,500 of the overall program. And so currently you only have in history 5 OEMs that participated in fuel cell. And to date, we have 2 OEMs with only 1 having delivered any vehicles for the program. And the new to market technologies such as fuel cells were not to be subject to fleet size limitations until the next technology has achieved a higher degree of market penetration, and that has been voted on by the board over the last 3 years. And so my comments support that these findings from the Clean Transportation Incentive Board votes over the 3 past years deserve to be continued. And I'm concerned about the May 30th proposal that the table included a large reduction for fleet sizes for fuel cell vehicles that were above, I don't know if it's 20 units or if it's 50 units, but they were to be exempt. So I'd love to understand what is the purpose of this, because it certainly doesn't support the market penetration.
Lisa, you're referring to the small business voucher limitation of 20?
You guys proposed a table that included
Yeah, so
different-
that comes from the funding plan. We had provided in that funding plan that with the small business doubling at that, what was doubling at that time would be limited to 20. That's where that that limitation comes from. As far as the voucher amounts, we have gotten comments about fuel cells. We've gotten comments about a couple of the other classes as well. And so we're analyzing that data right now and coming up with recommendations for management to make a final decision to the board and the EO. And so that'll come up pretty quickly in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, I guess what's confusing is you put the proposal table together that had a column, one for new proposed small business voucher amount, and then you had one for a base voucher amount. And you specifically called out the Class 8 fuel cell at the new base amount being 160, and then the new proposed small being 420. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding if there's some proposal associated with fuel cell to not be exempt any longer from the fuel size. I just want to make sure I'm not misinterpreting.
Yeah, no, I think you're there's two conflating things there. So even if under the previous voucher amounts, if you were your small businesses would be limited to 20, regardless if they were fuel cell, BEV, or anything else. And so that's where that limitation's coming from. So.
Yeah, but what about the base amount of 160? Is that going to be subject to any fleet size requirements?
No, that's not. So that's part of the reason for the reductions in the base vouchers, right? Because we are opening it up to all large fleets, and there won't be any bulk purchase requirements or anything like that that used to be there for any BEV or the fuel cell didn't have those, but BEVs would not have bulk purchase requirements either.
Yeah, okay, so then for clarity, that's helpful, so thank you. So then in the fuel cell technology column that used to exist at 100% for fuel cell, is that going away?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. What was that?
So there was a column that was in your current existing table for vouchers, but that means the current 2025, the 11/1/2024 program included a table that has a fuel cell 100% modifier for the technology. And then you also have 100% for small fleets, in the existing one, not the proposed one. So I want clarity, please. Is the fuel cell 100% modifier for fuel cell technology going away in your proposal?
Yeah, so in general, the proposal overall eliminates all plus ups and goes to a more simplified structure, and that's where that new table would take in place. And so the voucher amounts in there are not finalized, but plus ups in general are going away. So, but we can discuss this.
And we do have some questions that have come in on the email, so thank you so much. And if there are any follow-ups, please use the email on the slide to ask. We are a little behind schedule, so I do want to keep us on track. We did receive a question from Ayush Punjabi, who asked, "Hi team, thank you for the presentation. Could you guide if there will be new vouchers to be announced for funding for core? Looking for detail on MPUs. If yes, is there any timeline on when in 2025 where applications will be open? Thank you." So as I noted a little bit earlier, core will reopen this August with 14.97 million, maybe a little bit more than that based on cancellations. And MPUs will receive funding. We haven't decided how we're bucketing the funding across the core program, but there will be funding for MPUs in core this year. Hopefully that answers your question. Feel free to send us another if you need clarification. And I did see that Marissa Brown did have her hand up, but has now put it back down. So I just wanted to pause and see. Okay, I see it back up. All right, would you like to ask your question?
Sure, I was just looking at time, but I had more of an anecdotal question in regards to Shift. I'm not as familiar with Shift, and I wanted to understand a little bit more anecdotally why this program kind of receives or has received $600 million to date, and just wanted to understand more of the significance of this program.
Be happy to tell you all about it. It's received $600 million to date in part because it's been around since 2009. So it's got like over 15 years of receiving funding, usually smaller amounts. The purpose of the SHIFT program is to prepare early markets and bring to market the technologies that we need for the future. So part of why there are zero emission trucks on the road today, why they're even commercially available, is because of the very first SHIFT project or one of the very first shift projects, way back more than 10 years ago, that was doing a first demonstration of zero emission drayage trucks. So it really lays the groundwork for future commercially available technologies, especially those that are zero emission. The projects are broad ranging in the types of vehicles and technologies that are included. Obviously, zero emission trucks. We've had deployment of the world's first battery electric freight locomotive, the world's first hydrogen fuel cell ferry in San Francisco. We've had battery electric top handlers and fuel cell trucks, and just emission control systems for ocean going vessels, and tier 5 engines and zero emission tugs, and there just really broad array of vehicles and equipment in the shift program. The projects focus on really showing that the technology is feasible, de-risking the OEMs and operators so that technology can be fully proven out, tested, and improved. So, like, anecdotally, some examples, I mentioned that battery electric locomotive. It was the very first in the world. It was only developed because of the opportunity for funding through the program. And after that very first test run, the railroad that operated it was much more comfortable with the technology. The OEM that developed it was able to develop a second gen one, which they've since sold around the world. So that's really the success of the shift program, why it's important.
Great, thank you. And then just the last question with that discussion on the HVIP voucher amount. Will this be discussed later in a future workshop, or will there be another platform to discuss this?
So the final the voucher amounts, that first work group we had would be the only one after this one now. We will be finalizing those recommendations now in the next couple weeks. So I don't know if there would be another opportunity other than maybe sending emails or written comments to us directly. We will be evaluating voucher amounts on an annual basis, and so part of that will be a part of this funding plan cycle for January 1st. So there will be always a constant evaluation kind of going forward about base voucher amounts, small business voucher amounts, where those need to be set, kind of going forward. But for the immediate one that would affect the Q3 voucher amounts, that decision likely would be finalized in the next couple of weeks. So if you have any additional comments, please send them written to me directly or to the email associated with this work group.
Thanks, Inder. And I did want to also just, based on the comment we received where folks were having some confusion about how to raise their hands, we're about to go into an larger open comment period, but I did want to reiterate that you do not click the react or reactions tab to figure out how to raise your hand. You go to participants to raise your hand. And again, if you're on your phone, you can find the raise hand feature on the more tab. And then if you're calling in, it's *2. So hopefully that helps. And then there's always the email address. But I am seeing, oh, Lynette.
Yeah, I'll just elaborate. I'm on my PC and I have to go to more and then react. And it's in there. So if people are having that problem, that's the issue.
So you're on the desktop version and you have to go to more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you select React populates at the bottom, but it's in the reactions tab. There's some emojis and stuff, and then right at the bottom it says lower hand or be right back or raise hand or whatever. So I just thought I'd share that's how I'm getting there if anyone else is struggling.
All right, thanks. We'll update our instructions. So apologies for anyone who's been struggling with that. I see Laura Henkel's hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, for me, I do have to go to React. And then it says raise hand. Then I have to go to participants and unmute myself.
All right, well, this is helpful feedback. Thanks, folks. And, oh, some hands went up and down. All right, I think we can move on to the next portion, which is Q&A related, but I will hand it to Steph.
Nicole, yeah, we were going to have an open discussion session, but we're actually at the time that would end, and we have about 5 or 6 minutes left in our meeting. So at this point, I feel like we have had a lot of questions and comments. And so if there are more that we didn't have a chance to get to in the interest of time, if you could please email those to our general email box, clean transportation incentives at arb.ca.gov. And we can always take those questions or comments offline. And I'll go ahead and we can go to the next slide. So just summarizing and next steps in our funding plan development process. While there isn't much proposed funding for incentive projects this year, today's meeting helped us lay out the status of our incentive projects, some thoughts on where some of that 35 million in air quality improvement funds could be allocated. Also keeping in mind that we are going to have work groups throughout the next couple of months to also figure that out. And then we also have the new $132 million that we just learned about at the end of last week in the budget. And if I'm remembering it correctly, that's for HVIP, for the clean trucks and buses. And then we've also heard about some potential policy changes for some of our incentive projects for this year. I appreciate, and I'm sure all of the staff appreciates, the robust and varied comments and questions that we received today. So next, we'll take a look at the schedule for this year, and I'll follow up with, or I'll end with our contact information. So next slide, thanks. So we'll have a recap of today's meeting at 5 p.m. tonight, and that's our monthly evening community meeting for community members, community-based organizations, and others. And as mentioned earlier, mid-June to about mid-August are the more intensive months for us to collaborate with you to develop the proposed funding plan. And as you can see, we have a lot of meetings planned for the next few months, as shown on the slide. In August, we'll discuss the draft ideas in a workshop and recap that at the monthly evening community meeting a few days later in August. Then staff will write the proposed plan and post it on the website on October 10th, when you'll have an opportunity to review and comment on the plan for 30 days. We'll have an evening community meeting on October 21st as an opportunity for community members to discuss the proposed plan. And so staff can answer questions and listen to people's comments. We'll present the proposed plan and hear verbal comments at the November 20th board meeting, where you'll also have a chance to provide verbal comments. I'll wrap up our meeting with our contact slide. So we want to remind you of our open door policy, especially for those that are most affected by our incentive projects. We encourage you to contact us if you're interested in setting up a one-on-one discussion about your or your group's needs, concerns, and potential solutions. We have a new funding plan engagement opportunities webpage where you can find our online meeting request form, a link to sign up for our listserv to receive email updates, and our calendar of meetings. And staff will share that in the link. It looks like maybe they already have. You can also reach us at the email addresses that are provided on the slide, and our general email box again is cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. We appreciate your engagement with us to develop the proposed funding plan, and we look forward to collaborating with you this year. It's been a pleasure to facilitate this meeting today, and we hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thank you.